Hello and welcome to Ask Amanda Now. I am Strata lawyer Amanda Farmer and I am coming to you unusually live on a Sunday morning. We usually have our live chats on a Friday afternoon, whether that's a Friday Live or an Ask Amanda Now session. We missed out on Friday because I was appearing in our tribunal, NCAT, the New South Wales Civil and Administrative Tribunal. I was here quickly. You may have seen the video further below down the page on Friday afternoon before I jumped in an Uber and went across to NCAT to appear for a group of lot owners. Thank you to those of you who posted your well wishes there under the video, and many of you posted your questions for me to come back to today, choosing one Strata question to answer for you in this live segment. So first of all, yes, I did have a successful afternoon in NCAT, obtained the interim orders that my clients were seeking there that afternoon. So that was a great result. As I said quickly on Friday, I hope to, at some stage, bring you more of the details of that case. It is an interesting one there that I've been involved in for a little while. And after that appearance, I jumped on a plane and flew from Sydney to Orange in New South Wales Central West. And I have been here for the weekend attending my auntie's birthday party. So I had an auntie who had a 70th birthday party, and we are in a little town just outside of Orange, staying at a B&B, a really nice little spot. You've got the back of the house here behind me, but there is a lovely view that I have. I might just give you a little sneak peek at here of what I'm looking out to here on the property. You might see that little figure out there is my son playing a bit of cricket there. It's just gorgeous. And there are about 10 of us at the moment here, my family, enjoying this weekend. And we are shortly going to jump in the car and head back to our home, which is in Mudgee. So that's about 2 hours down the road. But I was not going to do that until I had been here with you as promised and answered one Strata question, chosen from the few questions that were posted under the short video on Friday. If you are joining me here live this Sunday morning, do feel free to drop me a hello here in the comments. I'd love to know that you're there. I'm sitting outside here, this house, because there's a bit going on inside, as you can imagine, after a late breakfast on a holiday weekend away with family. And I'm sitting outside to get some peace and quiet. But of course, I've sat out here and the wind has suddenly picked up. So I'm just going to do my best to cup my mic here. And I apologize if there's some wind noises coming through there. If you're joining me here live, come and say hello. If you're catching the replay, then feel free to drop me a hello as well. Really good question that we have today, and I wanted to make sure that I did have the opportunity to get stuck into this one because it's an important one. It's one that I think we're going to see coming up more often as our owners, I often say, owners are getting more savvy. They're getting a little bit more clever about what their rights may be in Strata. And I think we're going to see more of these types of questions and owners thinking more along the lines of this particular owner who Ronnie is dealing with. Now, Ronnie, we'll pop his question up here on the screen. Rochelle very helpfully here with me today to support our Sunday Live. Ronnie's question is this: if an owner's view from their balcony is interrupted due to an owner's corporation's remedial work, does that owner have a claim on the owner's corporation? Great question. And I jumped on this one because I have been involved in precisely this type of, I don't want to call it a dispute. It didn't get that far, but I've definitely been involved giving advice to a building where this type of claim was attempted by an owner. It was probably a couple of years ago. The owner in this building was a retired judge. The Strata manager got a letter. The letter said, in short, I'm not happy about what's going on my balcony. There's scaffolding on my balcony to assist with some remedial work that's going on around the facade of the building. I live in a penthouse apartment. This is blocking my lovely view. I don't want the scaffolding there anymore, but if it has to be there, then I want a reduction in my levies. That is what this owner was asking for in this case I was involved in a couple of years ago. And that strata manager, that committee got that letter, saw that this person had some legal training, some very, very high level legal experience, and wrote to me and said, Amanda, I don't think we should be answering this. I think we need to get your view on this. Just because the scaffolding is there on a temporary basis and is blocking this person's view, are they entitled to a rebate on their levies as they've asked for, or some kind of compensation? And I thought, oh, great question. Let me have a look into this one. And I ended up reaching out to one of the specialist barristers that I work with in the strata law area. And we both put our heads together on this one, did some research, and came up with an opinion as to whether this owner was entitled to any compensation for their loss of view. Now, Ronnie's question, I'm wondering if it's a little bit different, because in Ronnie's question, which there's a little bit more background further down the page, where he has told us that, yes, this is remedial work that's happening in this beachfront property. The remedial work is happening to address some defects around the building. And what's happened is that some capping has been added to a parapet wall to stop water ingress to the unit below. Now, it sounds to me, Ronnie, like this might be a permanent addition to the common property and perhaps not as temporary as the scaffolding that was in place in the case I was involved in a couple of years ago. The scaffolding was only a temporary obstruction to the view, and I'm wondering whether this is a permanent obstruction to the view and whether this puts this case in a different position. I'm going to talk about that. But some of you are coming on here live. Ronnie is here. Fantastic. Great to have you here, Ronnie. I'm glad that you're not missing out on this one. Thank you very much for this question. Daryl is here as well, saying good morning. I can see some smoking questions coming up, questions about smoking in strata. They're always great ones as well. The question that I am here answering today is whether an owner's view from their balcony, if it is interrupted by remedial work being done by the owners corporation, does that owner have a claim against the owners corporation? And Ronnie, thank you, just giving me some clarity there. Ronnie's saying correct, it's going to be, or it is, a permanent feature. Okay, good to know. All right, so the question is whether an owners corporation is liable, is responsible to pay any compensation for what we might call a loss of amenity, a loss of view that an owner may have arising from an owners corporation's work in fulfilling its repair and maintenance duties. Okay, that's how I might articulate the situation as a strata lawyer. Now, the type of claim that an owner might make if they were to go to a court to make this claim would, in my view, have to be a claim in nuisance. So they would have to say that what the owners corporation is doing is causing a nuisance to them. And we need to look at what are the elements of nuisance. How do we prove that there is a nuisance happening? And I spoke about this. It's funny that some people here today live are asking a question about smoking, because smoking falls into this same category. And I've been talking a bit on this page, talking to ABC Radio about a month or so ago about nuisance and what constitutes a nuisance. And the elements of nuisance are twofold. You have to show that the owners corporation is, number one, interfering with an owner's normal use and enjoyment of their lot. And number two, that the nuisance is both, or the interference is both substantial and unreasonable. So two things to be proven here. There's an interference with an owner's normal use and enjoyment of their lot, and that interference is both substantial and unreasonable. Now, we have a ton of case law over hundreds of years that tell us that people can claim in nuisance for things like bad smells that come onto their land, or sunlight that is being blocked by what's happening on a neighboring property. And that's because healthy wholesome air and sufficient sunlight are thought to be necessary, reasonable and necessary for someone's normal use and enjoyment of their land. On the other hand, when we're talking about a view or a prospect or an aspect, something very similar to what I'm looking out at right here, right now, the courts have found that a view is not sufficient, is not necessary, is not required for an owner's normal use and enjoyment of their land. So some people have posted, I think I saw some comments in response to what Ronnie posted on Friday. I posted here below saying, nope, there's no right to a view. Nobody has a right to a view and you can't claim for loss of view. That's pretty well correct, pretty well on track as the law stands in New South Wales. And there's a series of cases, both old and new, to this effect, that you need something more. There needs to be a more substantial and unreasonable interference than simply a loss of view. Now, I don't know the specifics of this case. Ronnie has said that this is a permanent structure that is going to permanently block this person's view. I don't know the extent of how much view is being blocked. Is it all gone? Is it just partially blocked? If this case was brought before a court, then the court is going to apply a common sense approach, looking at relevant factors and the specific circumstances of this particular building, the nature of the location, the extent of the interference, the value of the view, and for some apartments, views may be significant. It is particularly waterfront, beachside, it is, a view can add significant value and amenity. A permanent loss of views could, I think, arguably be said to have a substantial impact on amenity and on value. And it may be that a clever owner with a clever lawyer may be able to argue that there is a substantial and unreasonable interference and therefore elevate their case into that level of being able to prove a private nuisance. What I think, however, is going to be very relevant here is what the Owners Corporation is doing to repair and maintain its common property. So did the Owners Corporation have any other option when it came to this fix to prevent water ingress to the apartments below? Was this the only option? And was this the only way that the Owners Corporation could solve this problem and therefore meet its legal duty? That is going to be a relevant factor, I would think, in this kind of case. I think the owner starts probably on the back foot because we have this series over hundreds of years of cases saying there's no real right to a view. This is not like getting sunlight or getting clean air into your property. You're going to have to prove that there was no other option. That there was another option for the Owners Corporation and they ignored that. They didn't take that into account. Instead, they went with the cheap option with putting the capping on the parapet wall, or they went with the fast option and that took away your view, and that there is a substantial and unreasonable interference because this is a $1 million view. There's no other aspect from the apartment. It's a huge terrace. We use it all the time. There'd be a lot involved in the fact scenario there that would need to be understood. But generally speaking, owners don't have a right to a view. If there is a temporary interference with a view, I think it is fairly well clear that there wouldn't be a claim that would be successfully made against an Owners Corporation. Whether there is a permanent interference with a view depends, and whether the owner could successfully have a claim against the Owners Corporation would really depend on the specific facts in that case and some of these elements that I've been talking about. So very, very interesting case there. I'm just covering my mic to protect you all from the wind here. Just going back to our comments here, Ronnie saying, yes, permanent fixture. Daryl saying, could they claim that it is a loss in value for the unit due to impact to view? Yep, absolutely. So I think you might have posted that, Daryl, before I got to saying that. Yes, that would be a relevant factor if they were going to make the claim. Ronnie saying the new capping is 200 mils higher than the existing top of the current wall. Okay, 200 mils. So we're sort of, yeah, a little bit higher. Look, I don't know the property, Ronnie. It doesn't sound like that completely removes the view. I would be very interested to know whether that was the only option for the Owners Corporation to deal with this problem, because I think that would be a pretty safe position for the Owners Corporation to take if it was defending one of these claims, showing that this was the only thing that we could have done. Caroline, hello, how are you, is saying, what about the council? Surely they would be involved with an application to increase height. Yeah, maybe, not sure. But I hope that's helpful, Ronnie. Temporary, I know the case that I was involved in that I mentioned earlier with this penthouse apartment and scaffolding being erected to deal with problems, temporary obstructions, I think it is fairly well settled that there would be no claim against the Owners Corporation for a temporary obstruction. A permanent obstruction, we need to look at the extent of that, the precise nature of the property, how much of the view is being impacted, and whether this was the only option for the Owners Corporation to fulfil its legal duty, its mandatory, unavoidable legal duty to repair and maintain the common property. All right, so that is your Sunday edition of Ask Amanda Now. Thank you, Ronnie, for that question. I hope you'll all head out and enjoy the rest of your Sunday. I'm about to get on the road and head off from this B&B that I've been staying in for the weekend back to my home in Mudgee, and I'll look forward to catching you all here live again very, very soon. Bye, everyone.